It was a spring morning when I saw that thing buzzing above my organic cornfield. The sun was reflecting off its metal structure while I was driving my John Deere tractor along the east end of the farm. I adjusted my faded cap to see better, and almost knocked over an entire row of freshly planted seedlings when I realized it was a drone. Not just any drone. It was the same model Jennifer had shown off at the last community meeting. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. I turned off the engine and watched the device hovering about 20 meters above the ground. Its camera pointed straight at the sprayer attached to my tractor. That familiar feeling of invasion came back full force. At 42, I inherited this farm from my father and, before him, my grandfather. 3 generations growing food sustainably on this piece of land that now found itself surrounded by luxury condominiums. Jennifer, the self-proclaimed savior of local real estate value, was 48 and obsessed with rules she made up herself. As president of the Golden Valley Homeowners Association for the past 2 years, she turned what used to be a community group into her own little personal kingdom. The problem was that my property was well outside her jurisdiction, a fact she conveniently ignored. The drone made a sharp turn and headed toward my free-range chickens. I threw my hat on the ground in frustration. This wasn't just an invasion of privacy, it was a declaration of war. The next morning, there weren't just 1 but 3 drones flying over my fields. My pigs panicked from the noise, knocking down part of the west fence and invading the pumpkin patch. It took me almost 4 hours to gather all the animals back and fix the damage. I was still mending the fence when a shiny white SUV pulled up at the farm's entrance. Jennifer got out of the vehicle wearing a set of yellow linen and high heels, completely unsuited for the rural terrain. She was carrying a clipboard like it was a shield. "Good morning, neighbor," she said with that smile that never reached her eyes. "Just doing a routine inspection. We have rules about structures visible from the main roads. Jennifer, for the 10th time, my farm isn't part of your association. You don't have any authority here. We all share the same community," she replied sweetly. "And that old sprayer? It's a real environmental hazard. I'm sure we can come to an amicable agreement before this goes to other authorities." As we talked, I noticed my neighbor George approaching in his usual calm manner. At 82, George was a living library of farming knowledge and the only other remaining farmer in the area. "Having trouble with invaders again?" he asked, his sharp eyes sizing up Jennifer. "Airborne invaders this time," I said. George looked up at the drones still circling overhead. "Back in my day, we knew how to deal with unwanted visitors," he murmured quietly, loud enough for only me to hear. "Especially ones who don't respect property lines." 3 days later, the flock of sheep got scared by the persistent buzzing of the drones. 2 lambs fell over a shallow ravine, luckily without serious injury. I was checking on the young sheep when Jennifer showed up holding an official envelope. "Formal notice," she announced, handing over the document. "The association is considering proposals for alternative community use of underutilized properties in our area." I opened the envelope right there. The document contained terms like zoning reassessment and order for a feasibility study. In plain language, they wanted my land. "Organic farming is underutilization? I've been selling to local markets for 15 years. Be realistic," Jennifer sighed as if explaining something obvious to a child. "This valley could host luxury condominiums or a golf course. Your little operation is charming but outdated." I could feel my blood boil. "I'm not interested in selling." "Nobody said sell," she smiled. "There are other legal mechanisms when it comes to the common interest." When Jennifer left, I realized it wasn't just my privacy being invaded. It was my very existence in that place that was being threatened. "She's using those drones to map your property," explained George as we had coffee on the porch. "Looking for any violation, real or made up, to pressure you legally." We looked at the shed where I stored my agricultural equipment, including the sprayer that Jennifer so criticized. It was an older model, but perfectly functional and designed to use only organic compounds on the crops. "You know," George began, his eyes lighting up a bit, "that sprayer could be useful for more than just your plants." We spent the afternoon in the shed, fixing parts of the spraying system and mixing up a special solution. Organic cane molasses, cassava starch, and water. A perfectly sticky paste, non-toxic, and completely biodegradable. "Let's give those invaders a bath," George laughed, his wrinkled hands adjusting the equipment's pressure with decades of experience. The next morning, when the drones appeared right on cue at 9, I was ready. I started the tractor and positioned the sprayer. The first drone didn't stand a chance when the sticky mixture hit its propellers, it wobbling in the air like an injured bird before falling among the sunflowers. The phone rang non-stop for the rest of the day. Jennifer left 7 messages, each one angrier than the last. On the last one, her voice trembled with rage. "You destroyed private property. This is vandalism, intimidation, and obstruction. I'm gonna sue you down to your last penny." It wasn't long before the white SUV showed up, followed by a sheriff's cruiser. Jennifer jumped out of the car even before the engine was off. "There he is!" she shouted, dramatically pointing. "He destroyed 3 community surveillance drones." Sheriff Tom, a sensible 51-year-old I'd known since school, kept a neutral face while Jennifer demanded my immediate arrest. "Jennifer," the sheriff said calmly, "drones flying over private property without permission aren't exactly legal. They were in public airspace." "Actually," George interjected, who had quietly appeared, "private aerial jurisdiction extends quite high when it comes to privacy invasion and disturbing farming operations." The sheriff nodded. "I don't see a crime here. Just a farmer protecting his livestock from unauthorized intrusions." Jennifer turned red with fury, but with no legal basis for her complaint, she left making vague threats about "this isn't over" and other channels. As the sheriff said goodbye, I could see in Jennifer's look that she was only stepping back for now. The real battle was yet to come. I woke to the sound of horse hooves clattering nervously in the barn. It was still dark. The digital clock showed 4:17 in the morning. I grabbed my flashlight and went out to check, my bare feet feeling the dew on the grass. Something had scared the animals. When I got to the barn, the horses were calmer but still agitated. That's when I saw, reflected in the beam of my flashlight, a metal sign nailed to the ground near the fence. "Property under community appraisal for seizure," was written in black letters on a yellow background, with the Golden Valley Homeowners Association logo in the corner. My heart raced. I walked around the property and found 5 more identical signs, strategically placed along the boundaries of the farm. They had been put up during the night. A deliberate invasion of my property. At first light, I called George. He arrived limping slightly, leaning on his hand-carved cane, but his blue eyes still shone with that familiar sharp insight. "They crossed the line this time," he said, examining one of the signs. "Invading property is a crime, whether with or without the blessing of that ridiculous association." I tore down all the signs and stacked them on the porch. We decided to go to the sheriff's office to file a report. As George grabbed his hat, I noticed a folded piece of paper in his pocket. "What's this?" I asked. George unfolded what looked like a newsletter from the Homeowners Association. "I found it in the mailbox yesterday. I thought you should see this." The newsletter, printed on glossy paper, showed aerial photos of my farm, clearly taken by drones. The headline read, "Expanded Golden Valley Project, Turning Rural Spaces into Premium Opportunities." I felt the blood freeze in my veins as I read the text. Jennifer wasn't just bothered by my farm, she had concrete plans. The newsletter talked about re-urbanizing underutilized areas, maximizing real estate appreciation potential, and converting outdated rural land into high-end developments. There was even a digital sketch showing how my farm would be transformed into a complex of luxury homes around an artificial lake. The lake would be exactly where my ancestral wheat field was, grown from seeds my grandfather brought over from Europe. "This is more than an invasion," I mumbled. "It's a planned coup." "And that's not all." George pointed to a small detail at the bottom of the newsletter. "Look at the date." A discreet notice mentioned a community celebration the coming Saturday, where Jennifer would officially present the new expansion initiative to all interested residents and investors. At the sheriff's office, Tom greeted us with strong coffee and a concerned expression. I showed him the signs in the newsletter. "Look, I understand your frustration," he said, scratching his graying beard. "But technically, the newsletter is just speculative propaganda. They aren't claiming to own your land, yet." "And the signs? Property invasion?" I pressed. "I can file a complaint, but without proof of who put them up." Tom trailed off. "We all know who did it," George interjected. "The same person who's been sending drones to spy on the farm for weeks." Tom sighed. "Without solid evidence, our hands are tied. Jennifer is smart. She never appears in the drone footage and always has an alibi for the more direct actions." We left the office with a report that would probably lead nowhere. While I was driving back to the farm, an idea began to form in my head. "I need more solid proof," I said to George, "and I know exactly how to get it." That afternoon, we got an unexpected visitor. Peter Lawson, a middle-aged man with thin-framed glasses and a suit too expensive for this rural setting, introduced himself as a development consultant from the association. "I'm here just to discuss friendly alternatives," he said. his smile not hiding a calculating look. Mrs. Jennifer believes we can come to an agreement that benefits everyone. There's no deal to be made, I replied firmly. This farm isn't for sale. Nobody said sale, he adjusted his glasses. There are legal mechanisms that can be triggered when a property is negatively impacting regional development. George, who had been sitting silently up to that point, leaned forward. Is he threatening eminent domain? On what grounds? Environmental violations? Zoning issues? Complaints about noise and odors? Peter listed carefully. We have testimonials from several residents about the smell of the animals and the noise of the equipment. This farm has been here for over 100 years, I shot back. The condominiums came later, and all my practices are certified organic and sustainable. Peter shrugged and handed me an envelope. Just consider the proposal for a voluntary transfer facilitation. It'd be less traumatic for everyone. After he left, I opened the envelope. It contained a ridiculously low offer for a voluntary property transfer facilitation, along with a 30-day deadline to respond. They're closing in on me, said George, his usually calm voice now tense with concern. That night, I couldn't sleep. The farm had always been my refuge, my inheritance, and my future. Every tree, every animal, every piece of land told a story about my family. The idea of seeing all that turned into cookie-cutter houses for people who couldn't tell corn from wheat made my stomach turn. The next morning, I discovered another invasion. Overnight, someone had marked century-old trees with orange dye, the same type used to indicate cutting in development projects. Some of those trees had been planted by my great-grandfather. That was it. War was declared. Hey, their party is set for Saturday at the community gazebo, explained George, pointing to a regional map spread over the kitchen table. Jennifer invited everyone, potential investors, and even city officials. We sat in my worn wooden kitchen, planning our counterstrike. The last rays of sunlight came through the windows, lighting up black and white photos of my ancestors on the wall, men and women who had defended this land for generations. It'll be the perfect moment, I continued. Everyone will be there, including those she manipulated with false information about my farm. Over the next 3 days, we methodically prepared. The old sprayer was completely overhauled, every nozzle checked to ensure an even spray. George, drawing on decades of experience from before he became a full-time farmer, had surprisingly useful tactical knowledge. The key is timing, he kept saying, as we fine-tuned the equipment. You need to show up exactly when she's presenting her plans for your farm. We even got an unlikely ally in Miguel, the worker from the agricultural supplies store, who also worked part-time for the association. He let us know that Jennifer was planning an elaborate presentation with a big screen projection, showing images of my farm transformed. She even ordered a special cake in the shape of a condominium, Miguel said, shaking his head in disapproval. And there's a model of the new community where your house is right now. Our plan needed a special element. Instead of the sticky mixture from before, we developed something more sophisticated. A biodegradable fluorescent dye, invisible in daylight but that would shine intensely under ultraviolet light. We mixed the compound with natural mint essence, harmless but with a strong, lasting scent. The dye will mark everyone who takes an active part in the plan, George explained as he mixed the components with precision. And more importantly, it'll reveal something that only we know. During our nightly inspections over the past few days, we discovered that Jennifer and her associates had made invisible markings all over my property. Lines and symbols drawn with a special marker that only appeared under certain conditions. Those markings outlined lots, streets, and planned structures. A complete division of my land done without my knowledge or consent. The dye will react with the markings and make them visible to everyone. George smiled, his eyes shining with the satisfaction of a well-executed plan. Will prove that they not only planned to take your land, but they were already dividing it illegally. I took a test flight with the sprayer, adjusting the height and speed to ensure broad coverage without waste. The equipment, which Jennifer had so criticized as old-fashioned and dangerous, was now going to be our main line of defense. On the eve of the big day, I went to the hill that separated my property from the condominium. From there, I could see the party preparations, tents being set up, lights being installed, chairs arranged in a semicircle facing an improvised podium. Jennifer was supervising everything, gesturing authoritatively, her shrill voice occasionally reaching my ears when the wind blew right. I went back home with renewed determination. As I fed the animals at dusk, I thought about what that land meant to me. It wasn't just a business or property. It was a living ecosystem I had sworn to protect and nurture. The same hands that now spread feed for chickens had sown entire fields, planted trees that would bear fruit for generations, built shelters for wildlife threatened by urban development. George arrived early Saturday morning. His normally serene face was solemn. "Are you ready?" he asked, placing his hand on my shoulder. "There'll be no turning back once we start." "More ready than ever," I replied, checking the weather one last time. Clear skies, a gentle wind in the perfect direction. Even nature seemed to be on our side. We meticulously set up the equipment. The sprayer tank was filled with our special mixture, each valve checked and rechecked. We installed a small sound system on the tractor, a tactical touch suggested by George. "Psychological warfare is as important as physical," he explained with the wisdom of someone who had been through real battles. "Tom," the sheriff called while we were making final adjustments. "I just wanted to let you know I'll be at the party today," he said, his voice cautious over the phone. "Jennifer insisted on having me there to ensure security during the special announcement." "Glad to know, Tom," I replied with a calm that even surprised me. "It's perfect that you're there." "What are you planning?" he asked, suspicion clear in his voice. "Just making sure the truth comes out," I answered. "Sometimes people need to see it to believe it." After hanging up, George and I did one final check of the plan. Our timing had to be impeccable. Miguel confirmed that the main presentation, the unveiling of the expanded Golden Valley project, was scheduled for exactly 3 p.m., the moment Jennifer would make her big announcement about the future of my farm. At 2:45 p.m., I started the tractor's engine. The old machine roared to life as if it understood the importance of the mission. George gave me one last hug before positioning himself at our observation point, equipped with binoculars and a radio for coordination. "Remember," he said, "you're not just defending your land today. You're defending all our right to live free from the tyranny of people like Jennifer." I drove toward the final showdown, the sun glinting off the metal sides of the sprayer, generations of farmers' determination guiding my hands on the wheel. The moment of truth had arrived. The clock read exactly 2:55 when I positioned the tractor on the hill to the west of the community gazebo. From there, I had a prime view of the party in full swing. Colorful pennants fluttered in the wind. Tables with white tablecloths were arranged in a circle, and about 70 people were mingling with champagne glasses and canapé plates. In the center of it all was Jennifer, wearing an impeccable red suit, her blonde hair neatly tied up in an elegant bun. She was animatedly directing a group of suited men who looked like investors. A huge projection screen had been set up on the main stage, covered by a golden cloth, waiting for the big moment of the reveal. I turned on the radio. "Position confirmed, George. How's the visibility over there?" "Clear as crystal," he replied from his strategic spot. "Jennifer's about to go up on stage. The mayor just arrived and the sheriff is near the drinks table." I adjusted the sprayer's controls and checked the wind direction one last time. Perfect. The breeze was blowing exactly to carry our special mixture over the entire party area. Over the radio, I heard George narrating, "Jennifer's grabbing the mic. She's calling everyone closer to the stage." I started the tractor's engine. The noise, although familiar to me, would be unmistakable to everyone at the party. I began slowly descending the hill, keeping a straight line toward the event. "Dear friends and future investors," Jennifer's voice echoed through the loudspeakers, amplified and confident. "Today is a historic day for our community. We are about to unveil the project that will transform Golden Valley into the most exclusive address in the state." I was already halfway to the party when some guests noticed me. Some pointed, confused. Jennifer, absorbed in her speech, continued without noticing. "For years, we've been held back by certain obstacles to progress," she said, her voice dripping with false compassion. "Outdated properties, old-fashioned farming methods hindering our development." It was then that the sheriff saw the tractor coming. I could see his expression change from surprise to understanding. He didn't try to stop me. He just crossed his arms and watched. "It is with great pride that I announce our greatest achievement," Jennifer continued, gesturing toward two assistants waiting by the covered screen. "The expanded Golden Valley project will incorporate the old Henderson farm to create a truly premium community." At that moment, I reached the edge of the field where the party was taking place. I was close enough to see Jennifer's triumphant smile and the shocked expressions of the guests as they noticed me. "What's that?" someone shouted. Jennifer finally turned her head, her face paling. "Keep on with the presentation," she ordered the assistants, who nervously pulled the cloth aside to reveal a huge aerial image of my farm digitally transformed into a luxury complex. It was the perfect moment. I activated the sprayer. A fine, almost invisible mist of the biodegradable dye began to spread through the air, carried by the gentle breeze. I also turned on the sound system installed on the tractor, which started playing a recording we had prepared. The very voice of Jennifer from a closed meeting of the association. "Who cares about permits? That fool won't even know what hit him until it's too late. The markings are already done, the investors secured. The farm is ours." Panic spread throughout the party. Some guests ran, others stood frozen, watching the fine mist settle over them. Jennifer, on stage, was shouting contradictory orders as she tried to protect the documents in her hands. "This is an assault! Sheriff, arrest that man!" But something extraordinary began to happen. As the dye settled on the lawn around the party, glowing fluorescent lines started appearing on the ground. The very markings that had been secretly made on my property, now revealed by the reactive component in our mixture. The lines formed a complete map. Streets, lots, construction areas, a full-blown real estate plan drawn on land that didn't belong to the association. "What are these markings?" asked the mayor, his voice cutting through the chaos. Jennifer was speechless, her face now as red as her suit. The sheriff knelt down to examine one of the lines. "They appear to be topographic and zoning markings," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "On private property, without authorization." The investors began to distance themselves from Jennifer, murmuring among themselves. The evidence was undeniable. Displayed for everyone was the illegal plan to take my land. I turned off the sprayer and parked the tractor at the edge of the field. I calmly got off and walked to the center of the commotion. The dye had done exactly what we planned. Not only did it reveal the illegal markings, it also slightly stained the hands of everyone who had been involved in placing the markings. About 8 people, including Jennifer, now had a faint blue glow on their palms. The sheriff came over to me, his face serious, but with a hint of approval in his eyes. "That," I pointed to the lines on the ground, "is property invasion, illegal appropriation planning, and conspiracy. And now I have all the necessary evidence." The week following the party was a whirlwind. The sheriff's office launched a formal investigation into the activities of the Homeowners Association under Jennifer's leadership. The dye marks revealed on the hands of those involved served as irrefutable physical evidence, corroborated by the exposed markings on the land. Jennifer was temporarily removed from the presidency of the association while the investigation continued. Her office was sealed and documents were confiscated. To my surprise, among those documents were detailed blueprints of my farm dated 6 months earlier, long before the drones started showing up. 3 days after the incident, George showed up at my door holding a small memory card, his eyes twinkling with that mischievous humor that only truly wise old folks have. "I found this on the drone that crashed in the sunflower field," he explained, coming in and settling into his favorite chair on the porch. "I figured you'd like to check it out before we hand it over to the sheriff." We plugged the card into my laptop. The files contained not just detailed aerial photos of my property, but also videos. In one of them, Jennifer appeared rehearsing an emotional speech about how the farm was abandoned and polluting the groundwater. Completely false statements she planned to use to justify action against me. Even more disturbing, a video of her practicing fake tears in front of a mirror. "The soil contamination is so severe," she rehearsed, forcing a tear while practicing concerned expressions. "We need to act for the sake of the children of Golden Valley." "That's pure gold," said George, shaking his head. "Overacting, but first-class evidence." I handed the card over to the sheriff the next morning. Tom watched the videos in silence, his expression shifting from disbelief to subdued anger. "This goes beyond just wanting your land," he remarked. "It's a coordinated campaign of defamation and fraud." At the emergency meeting of the association held the following week, Jennifer was officially removed as president. I attended as an observer, sitting quietly at the back of the community hall. The mood was tense, with residents divided between those who supported Jennifer and those who felt betrayed by her actions. Daniel Matthews, a 37-year-old university professor who had only lived in the condominium for a year, was elected interim president. His first official act was to come to me after the meeting. "On behalf of the association, I want to apologize for what happened," he said, extending his hand. "Many of us had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. We bought houses here because we appreciate the rural beauty of the area, including your farm." "I appreciate that," I replied, shaking his hand. "I just want to continue my work in peace. And we want to be good neighbors," he assured me. "In fact, several residents expressed interest in buying organic produce directly from your farm. Maybe we could organize a monthly community market?" The irony wasn't lost on me. The very association that almost took my land now wanted my products. But I agreed to the idea. Building bridges was better than keeping enemies. A week later, someone anonymously posted the videos of Jennifer practicing fake tears on social media. The material went viral quickly, turning her into a national meme. Farmer vs. Karen became an online phenomenon, with people from all over the country sharing similar stories of homeowners associations abusing their power. Jennifer put her house on the market and was rarely seen around the community. Whenever she went out, she avoided making eye contact with anyone. Her once pristine white SUV now sported an ironic sticker placed by someone with a sense of humor. Caution: driver may fake tears. The official investigation led to formal charges against Jennifer and 2 former board members for document forgery and attempted real estate fraud. The case would probably drag on for months through the judicial system, but the damage to her reputation was already done. On a Sunday afternoon, while George and I were having coffee on the porch watching the sunset over the wheat fields, I reflected on everything that had happened. "You know what's the most ironic part?" I said, pouring more coffee into our worn mugs. "Jennifer always talked about property value and community image, but in the end, she turned out to be the greatest threat to both." George laughed, his wrinkled face lit by the setting sun. "Some people never understand that true value isn't in appearances or status. It's in respect, honest work, and tradition." I raised my mug in a silent toast to those words. In the distance, I could see new corn shoots emerging in neat rows, the same ancestral variety my family had cultivated for generations. The chickens clucked peacefully in the coop, and the gentle breeze carried the sweet scent of blossoming peach trees. Daniel kept his promise. At the first community market held the following month, practically all the condominium residents came to buy eggs, vegetables, and fresh fruits from my farm. Some even brought their kids, who were enchanted to see the animals up close for the first time. City kids discovering what a real organic farm is like. I hired Miguel, the agricultural supplies store worker, as a part-time assistant. His experience with modern agricultural technology perfectly complemented my more traditional methods. Together, we started implementing a drip irrigation system that would reduce our water consumption even further. The drone that had been hit by the sprayer was cleaned up, repaired, and reprogrammed. Now it helped us monitor the health of the crops and spot wild animals that needed protection. A tool once used against me turned into an ally in conservation. On a particularly pleasant afternoon, while I was walking around the property checking the newly repaired fences, I saw a small group of condominium residents respectfully admiring the lavender field across the fence. "Can we take some pictures?" asked an elderly lady. "It's so beautiful, and we want to show our family back in the city." "Of course," I replied with a smile. "Feel free." Watching them appreciate the simple beauty of the farm, I realized that the most important victory wasn't against Jennifer or the association. It was the preservation of a way of life, a connection to the land that was becoming rarer in our fast-paced world. The old sprayer that Jennifer had so ruthlessly criticized now rested in the shed, clean and well-maintained. A silent reminder that sometimes the oldest tools are still the most effective when used with wisdom and at the right moment. The farm would survive for another generation, and maybe some of those condominium folks who now took pictures of the blooming fields would come to understand a little better the value of preserving not just the land, but the traditions and knowledge that kept it alive and productive. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like to get access to more stories like this. George, sitting on his favorite rocking chair on the porch, raised his glass of lemonade as I passed by. His smile said everything we needed to know. Some battles are worth fighting, especially when what's at stake is something as precious as home.